Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and we have another awesome guest lined up today. Julia Bickerstaff is the founder and CEO of the Business Bakery, which is a resource and a community for women creating healthy incomes through their solo, home-based, handmade or boutique businesses. I came across Julia a couple of years ago online actually and was really drawn to her brand, the Business Bakery, because it really was so unique and at the same time very nurturing and authentic and gentle. And I really loved that about the brand. And so when I had the opportunity to reach out and ask Julia to be interviewed, I leapt at it. And I'm so thrilled that she said yes. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the Empowered Women Show today, Julia Bickerstaff. Welcome to the show, Julia.
Oh, hello. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me along.
Well, I'm so thrilled. As I mentioned offline, I've been a fan of your work for a couple of years now. And when I heard that a mutual friend of ours knew you, I was, I'd love the introduction. And I'm so glad to actually have you on the call today. Now, I've introduced you. We talked about that you have created this phenomenal business called the Business Bakery, which I absolutely love. And I was reading a little bit of your background and your backstory around how you've actually come to launching the Business Bakery and where you are today. But I'd love for you to dive in more detail and actually share your story with our audience.
Oh, yes, look, I'd love to do that. So a little bit of background. To be honest, I was a bit of an accidental accountant. I went to university in London actually and spent too much money. This is a bit of a long story to where I got to, but I think it's important. And I spent too much money at university and I had to go and get a well-paying job as soon as I left to pay off all my credit cards. And, the accounting firms, had very good graduate sort of packages. And so I joined one and I said, you know what? I'm just going to I'll do it for a year, pay off my debts, and then I'll go off and do something really exciting. And, after a year, I hadn't paid off my debts and I ended up, when I say debts, credit cards from buying clothes, I hadn't got myself into, huge trouble, but just a little bit of trouble. And then I stayed and I qualified and I sort of did well in my job. And in fact, I came over to Australia. And I worked a lot of technology companies in the accounting practice, and I became a partner. And I was a partner at Deloitte, and it was, that was a really, quite a massive achievement. And at that time, I think I was the 10th female partner out of, and there was sort of at that time I think there were 450 partners or something, and I was like number 10, and it was like it's really big achievements. And I was like, really? Is this it? I just didn't. I mean, it sounds awful, but I didn't feel great about it. I didn't particularly enjoy my work, and I just thought, oh gosh, am I going to be doing this for the next 20 years? And I just thought, this isn't what I thought it was going to, this isn't what working is going to be. I've got a real drive within me that really wants to do something, and I want to do something really helpful and really useful, and I want to create something. And I felt I got off track. I felt that, back when I was in my early 20s, I'd wanted to have my own business and I wanted to do things. And then I got into my 30s and I'd had a fantastic job, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I had so I was made a partner. Then I had my three children my first three children quite quickly. I had three children within 3.5 years. And so I kept having maternity leave and then going back to work, and maternity leave and going back to work. And on my last lot of maternity leave, I just thought I had this overwhelming, it was like I couldn't stay at my job. I knew I had to go and do something else. And the question was, what? But the interesting thing was, parallel to doing the partner at Deloitte thing, I was also the finance expert on a TV show called Koshi's Business Builders on Channel 7. And when I was doing that, I met lots and lots of small businesses and really, really, really small businesses. And I realized that there's a lot of stuff that I had within me that I picked up from my years of working with larger businesses, which I could really help smaller businesses with. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I realized that actually this was what I really loved. I loved seeing people with I guess, micro businesses, but turn them into something really useful and make good money from it. And that was a passion of mine. And so my next step was I had to work out, okay, this is what I really enjoy doing, but how can I take what I've got and use it and wrap it up in a way that is really useful to people that I want to help, but is a way that's sort of affordable to them and scalable and all those sort of entrepreneurial type questions. And really that's what I sort of did with the business bakery.
That's amazing, Julia. And we share very similar stories, actually, because I think, I also did the whole corporate route, but had always had a dream to have my own business and to make a difference in other people's lives. And then you kind of get stuck in the status quo and you kind of follow the route. And before you know it, time's run out and you're like, oh, wow, where's that time gone? So I'm just intrigued, Julia, when you said there was a moment in time when you had your third child that you realized, you had to actually make the change. What was it, like a specific light bulb moment for you that you were like, oh my goodness, I do have, or was it just a kind of gradual realization that you had to make the change?
Look, that's a great question. And I think, look, the gradual realization had been happening, but when I had 3 small children under the age of 3.5, and I had, a big job, and I felt I was being pulled in a lot of different directions. And then I was thinking, I'm being pulled in a direction I don't actually want to even be in. So yes, I've got a great job and it's paying me good money, but I am leaving my kids for a big part of the day, to go and do this big job. And I'm not doing that job properly because I'm leaving at 5:30 to go back to my kids. I feel I'm not doing either thing properly. And actually, I'm not really enjoying this thing over here. It's paying bills, but I'm not really enjoying it. And is that really, I've got one crack at life, and am I, is this making me happy? Is it making my family happy? And to be honest, I looked at it and I thought, well, look, the money's making us happy. Let's be honest. But the work's not. Work's not making me happy, and I don't think I'm being a great mum because I think I'm a little bit stressed because I've got all this work on, and a little bit just, I just don't think it was all coming together for me. And then, I'm quite ambitious. And I think, well, I say ambitious. I mean, I just had a real desire that I had to do something, and it just felt like. It sort of, this sounds a bit woo-woo, but I felt like it possessed me. It just sort of, I remember the day when I went to hand my notice in, and I woke up in the morning and it was the 24th of June, and I was on a 6-month notice period. And I realized that in 6 months' time, it was Christmas Eve, and therefore, and the firm would be closed after that. And therefore, if I wanted to leave, this year, I had to hand my notice in on 24th of June. And it happened that I actually had a day off that day. It happens to be my wedding anniversary, which is how I can remember it as well. And I just woke up that morning and I thought, I've just actually got to go and hand my notice in. I'm going to worry about what I'm going to do in the next 6 months. And I phoned my husband, who actually said to him, oh, look, I'm going into work and I'm going to resign. And he said, do you think we need to talk about this?
I love it.
Well, I can't talk about it. I just actually have to do it. I actually have to do it. And I remember getting in the car, and I'd made an appointment to see my sort of the senior partner, and I said, you can't, please don't say anything to stop me. It's really important that I say this. It's really important that I leave and go and do my own thing. And he just sat there a little bit like, because it had come from nowhere. And look, lots of other things sort of happened, but he was great about that. And I think he understood that I just had this need to do it. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I just don't know. I woke up one morning with more balls than I had the other days.
Well, that's so interesting. And it's funny that you mentioned that too, Julia, is that I've interviewed so many other women, and it's so interesting that, you just have to have that. It's come up a lot in the interviews that I've had, is that you only have to have that moment of courage. You've got to literally find that moment of courage and just do the thing that you need to do. And then, what you've said is just deal with the consequences afterwards. And that's really what you did there, is just found that courage, just did it.
And you know what? I'm not naturally a very risky person like that, For goodness sake, I was an accountant, we're not renowned for being like that. So sometimes I think you just know when you've got to go with something.
Yeah, and I think when you connect to something that's really, like you said, it's kind of like, it's almost like you're possessed, and it sounds a bit woo-woo, but I get what you're saying. It's like really, it's a deep calling to do something. It's whether it's, it's what your passion is, it really is connecting with that. And I'm also intrigued now, Julia, once you resigned, then did you have clients for the business bakery yet? Or like, where were you at in terms of setting up the business?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because there were 2 things going on at the same time. One was that because I had these little businesses that I was helping, and I sort of didn't have time to help them, have the kids and the job and everything. I'd had this, good in inverted commas idea that I would write a book And what I would do is I'd write this book and I would give it to people so that they could have the book and that would help them with their business. And I wanted to write a very special sort of book, which I did. I wrote a book called How to Bake a Business, and it's recipes for business. And I was writing that at the swhen a little bit, about the same time when all this was going on. I was writing a book. So I didn't have a business necessarily, but I had a book, and I knew the book. Look, I just knew the book was going to be good because I'd written a book and I sent it to a publisher out of the blue, completely out of the blue, on Good Friday of that year. And so just before Easter. And on the Tuesday morning, she emailed me back saying, can we meet for coffee? So I'd sent her sort of a part of the manuscript and everything, and she loved it. And I basically published it straight away. And I don't know if you've had much experience trying to get a book published, but that's a rare story. So I knew that I had something with this. But let me tell you, the book actually took me a long time to write before that. I hadn't woken up one day and thought, hey, wow, I've got a book in me and written it. That whole story is another story, but it was hard to find the right way, my voice and the right way to do it. But once I'd done that, and I knew the book was very marketable. And so I sort of started to work out how I could put a business around the book, and the book would lead the way with that. Okay. And then I also had another thing happening at the same time. So I did a lot of work with larger businesses, and one of the things that I do, and I still do a bit of now, is I run strategic planning sessions for sort of medium-sized businesses, and I do a bit of coaching. Okay. And I met somebody who said, would I help them with their business? And I thought, I could probably, when I leave Deloitte, I could probably do a little bit of this to bring some income in while I'm working on the business bakery. And in fact, that was a little bit more successful than I thought, and it actually meant I got a little bit distracted from the business bakery. So when I first left Deloitte, I had a bit of work come in. I thought, this is great, better make the most of it. Started doing my own work, and then had to pull back on that and say, I've swapped something for something else, but it's not really the thing I want to do. And so I actually had to pull back from that and really fire up the business bakery as well.
That's so intriguing too, because again, similar story. I think we share so much in common, Julia. It's so interesting. But what made you then realize again that you'd swap something for something and you still weren't hitting on your exact passion?
Because I still had this real belief that I still had this real need, I think, to help specifically women with micro businesses. So what I really wanted to do was help. I knew a lot of people who wanted to have a small business from home. They wanted to earn, say, between $50,000 and $100,000 profit a year from that business, and they sort of wanted to work, I don't know, let's say 35, 40 hours a week on that business. Roughly, that's what they wanted to do, and the thing that they were creating, or the service they were giving, or whatever they were doing, was something really, really good, and that's what they wanted to do, but they couldn't make any money out of it. And I'd had so many conversations with people, and I knew what they needed to do to make money, and I knew that I could help them, and I really wanted to help them because actually I really felt that this was something I could do that was really, really worthwhile. I mean, I know there are other things that saving starving children is worthwhile, and saving the environment is worthwhile. But for me, this was worthwhile. This was my thing. And I thought, I can do something with this. I really can. I can help. And I was helping people individually, and that was never going to be sustainable. I mean, it wasn't going to be sustainable for me because I couldn't make enough money, and it wasn't sustainable for them because they couldn't pay for it. So I really wanted to do it, and it was like an itch that I needed to scratch, really. And I just, although I enjoy doing the other stuff, and I still enjoy going and doing stuff with bigger businesses because it's a bit of a different challenge. But I really, really wanted to I just had this desire and this drive to do it. And I can tell you the drive because I would get up at 4:00 in the morning to write the material for the program, but I wouldn't feel like it was work. I feel like I want to do that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's doing the right thing because I couldn't stop myself. I mean, I'm still to this day. I was up very early this morning actually doing some things. I can't stop myself. I wake up and I think, I should just go and do this, this, and this. And that's when I know it's the right thing because I actually have to say, no, let's stop doing some work. It's not like I'm feeling like it's my hobby,
Yeah, I get that so much, I think when you and again, I'm up at 4:00 in the morning because I just can't help myself. It doesn't feel like work at all, and that's when you really know that you're doing what you love. I think that's so true, Julia. Yeah. So I also want to ask you, because I love we've chatted a little bit offline about the business bakery, the branding, the whole voice around it, and I absolutely love it because I hopped on your Facebook page today, which I hadn't looked at for a while, and you've got 30,000 followers on Facebook, and it's just incredible, Julia, the level of success that you've had, but yet you're not loud about it. That's what I love, is that you really are a huge advocate of what I call gentle influence. And I think your whole business model and your branding really portrays that, Julia. And it's interesting that you said you struggled with your voice when you were writing the book. And so I'd love to know, how did you come about creating this strategically, and how much, and I know it's, having chatted to you a little bit offline, it's really coming from within, but how did you connect with that in terms of helping our listeners to really find their voice, and it's an authentic, gentle voice?
Look, it's all such a good question. And so my story was really that what I realized was the people that I were helping were feeling quite underconfident, and really weren't helped by people going, rah, 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 you've got to be earning this, your goals aren't high enough, you're not assertive enough and aggressive enough, and if you want to be in business, you've got to be whatever. And that sort of stuff I realized was really not useful to the people that I wanted to help, the people that I was helping, because actually, they were feeling a little bit underconfident. A lot of women who'd started businesses who thought it was going to be easier than it was, who then felt a little bit that they were failing, and they felt a responsibility, and then maybe they'd left jobs, providing an income for a family, all that sort of stuff. Things weren't going well. The last thing they needed to be told was, in your face, if you're not earning six figures in 6 days, you're nothing, and also they needed real very real stuff, not real practical things. And so that's what I wanted to do. But when I started originally writing my book, it came out a bit dictatorial, a bit like, you must do this, you must do it. Somehow my voice wasn't coming out in the way that I wanted it to come out. And I hadn't really, I knew what I wanted to say, but I hadn't really got a very good framework for the book. And the story goes like this. So I was trying to write this blooming book, which was the start of everything. And it wasn't coming out right. And I was working at the time in Deloitte, and I'm in Sydney, but I'd flown to Melbourne for some work, and I had taken my book with me. I took my book to write everywhere, so, and I was at the airport, and my plane was delayed. So I'm sitting in a lounge, trying to write my book, feeling really, really, really frustrated with it, and actually feeling I wanted to throw my computer out the window. Nothing was working. And I got on the plane, and I still felt frustrated. And I got home that evening. It was quite late, but it was my son's birthday the next day, and I promised I'd make him a cake. So I got into the kitchen thinking, oh God, got to get the cake. And I opened up a cookbook, and then it was Nigella Lawson cookbook, right? And I just thought, oh my God, you know what it is? It's a bit like Nigella. It's recipes. It's a nice way of saying, hey, look, what you can do this too. I can do it. You can do it. We can do it. It can be quite simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. You just need to know how. That's it. And all of a sudden, all the pennies dropped, actually. They really did. And it's quite funny, because if you actually look at, if you know that, and then you go and look inside how to bake a business, there are some ideas which you probably have to be me to work to see how they're connected, but they came from Nigella Lawson's How to Be a Domestic Goddess. And look, I don't think anybody else would realize the two things were aligned, but that's how I thought, look, come on, this is how we do it. And it's actually a different sort of a nurturing way. And once I got that, I've had to practice making sure that I don't appear, because I don't want to appear bossy and all that sort of stuff. I'm not a bossy person. Really, I want to be, it's almost like, we're sitting around my kitchen table going, hey, look, we could do this, and have a go at this, and why don't you try that and see what happens, and we're all in this together. And that's how I wanted it to be. And really, that's how I got to the How to Bake a Business, because it was baking, and there's an analogy with baking, which I will share with you. Really, if you've never ever made a cake ever, I've never seen anybody make a cake. Where would you start? You might have a bit of idea, there's a bit of flour, eggs in it, but you'd have a bit of a go, and it wouldn't be great. You wouldn't make a cake. And then someone comes along and says, you know what you need to be doing? You just need to have, it's quite simple. You just need to have this, 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 and this. You put it together in that way, and blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh, wow, gosh, it was that simple. And, there's a lot of parts of business which are like that. If you don't know them, you don't know them.
Exactly. So true.
Someone comes along and says, just do it this way. And you go, wow, light bulb moments. Oh, great. I'm on to the next thing. And there's a lot of parts of business which are like that. And I think if you're very, very good at something, Like a lot of people in the business bakery community are quite creative people. I've got people who make children's clothes, for example, but that's what they're really good at. And they just need to be told, look, business stuff, that's the sort of stuff you need to do around there. You concentrate on what you're good at. And that's how it all evolved, really. And it's been very, very important to me to continue to be like that. I see the business bakery as a gentle place, a safe place, a fun place, a practical place, a doable place. And I really don't mind what anybody wants to get out of their business, but let's all just see if we can get a little bit more out and have fun on the way and not kill ourselves doing it. I mean, that's this thing I have about making a healthy income. So it's not just
I love that.
working 4 hours, heaven sends. It's about saying, just working out that I'm earning per hour, because actually a healthy income is earning a good amount of income in a certain amount of time. And we're all on this journey together. And my big thing really is either sharing what I know or what I've learned or other good stuff people are doing, and to help people.
Oh, I love it, Julia. And I love the whole structure around, that whole branding, because as I talked to you offline as well, is that it does come across as very nurturing and homely, and I love that. And really what you're giving women solo businesses or businesses that are, create homemade goods and that kind of thing, is really the practical strategies. But we're also chatting a little bit offline, and I'm a huge advocate of the whole idea of community and collaboration. Really, that's what Empowered Women Revolution is all about, is that we have, I said it's the 3 C's. It's connection, collaboration, and community. And I'm just so passionate about really shining the spotlight on women, because we really do have, each of us, our unique skills. And as you said, you may be awesome at making curds, or you may be awesome at cooking, but you don't have the other skills. And really, that's what you're providing with the business bakery, is the actual other missing pieces, really, like of the puzzle in terms of creating business. But you also mentioned how important community is, and I'd love to talk to you about your experiences with having run a community like this. And
well, it's quite funny because I have this program called the Healthy Income Program, and when I first so basically, you join it, and it lasts for a year or more, and you get work to do. You get recipes, because I'm a recipe person. You get business recipes to do twice a week, and they're things which help your business. And so that was the program, and I started it in September, not last year, but the year before. So about 18 months ago. And then I was sort of thinking, oh, look, it would be good to have a little Facebook group to go with it so people could chat. But I was really nervous about doing that. I was a bit worried. I was thinking, oh, what will people say? And will anybody be in there? And I had all these things, to be honest, I really just was a bit worried about it. And I thought, oh, look, I won't do it. And a friend of mine said, God, you should just do it. What's the worst thing that can happen? And I thought, well, lots of bad things. Maybe, I don't know, people might not like each other, maybe, all sorts of things. So I was very cautious about it. And I sort of started this little Facebook group, and probably because I was cautious at first, not much happened in there. And then a few people started talking in there, and more people started talking in there, and everyone was joining it. And I had more intakes into the program. And then, literally, I felt like I turned around, and there was this fantastic group of women with small businesses who are helping each other out. There's no sales in there. Nobody sells to anybody. It's not that yucky stuff. It's people literally saying, hey, I got a phone call. Somebody phoned me about this thing, and I just don't know whether I should do it. What do you think? And then the next thing you know, 30 people are giving her advice. And there was a lady who wasn't sure whether she wanted to carry on her business. And I think we nearly had 100 different comments on the thread of people giving practical advice. So not just saying, oh no, don't do it, but actually, well, why? Well, have you got to this point? How can we help you? And then people taking that offline and saying, off the community, and saying, hey, look, how about I buddy up with you? I'll phone you every week and keep you going. And this thing just happens, and you sort of sit there going, wow, this is actually really what I wanted to create. I didn't know that's what I wanted to create.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the thing. A place where, pre-internet, back in the sort of village days, we might have been in the village, we might have met up, had coffee and done that sort of stuff. But you would never have met, you wouldn't have had that group of very like-minded people happen to be in the same place. And this is what's wonderful. We've created this thing. We have people from all over the world in it. People who you'd never meet normally, but actually the group feels like that. It feels quite chatty, and everyone's very nice, but helpful with it. And since I created that one, I created other groups as well. I mean, I in all sorts of different ways. So I've created teeny groups. So I ran a Facebook Ads Made Easy class. And I said, hey, let's have a group with it. So they get in the group and everyone starts chatting and solves their problems. And I run a thing called the 100-day goal. And there we have a group of people who we all set our own goal, and we all try to do an action a day, at least one action a day, to get to our 100-day goal. And we help each other. We just go, oh gosh, I'm not doing anything today. And then everyone else comes up and says, oh, but it's fine, start again tomorrow. And when you know there's 499 other people doing it, you sort of feel like you should be doing it as well.
Exactly.
And so it becomes, and the community is just the community aspect is very, very, very special. And in turn, it helps me create better things for the community, because if I know people are struggling with something, then I can either create it or source it for them. And I don't mind. I'm very big on sourcing things. I'm not the world's expert on everything. There's particular things which I think I do a pretty good job on. And there's a whole lot of things which I think people do better than me. And what I then go and do is source other people's stuff and say, hey, look, this person's doing this stuff, great, go and do it. And I'll check it out and make sure that it's trustworthy, because I think that's the other thing that you feel when you're a small business, especially if it's just you're starting off at home, you're not really sure yes, there's this stuff available, but should you trust it, or is it just salesy? You get a bit caught up in that. And so what I can do is I can go and check this stuff out and recommend it. And then we have and what I'd like to do is really grow this. I mean, for me, it's more about, there's you can't have too many people. I mean, you can have too many people in one group, but we have lots of groups. So you can't have too many people helping each other out, because it's just it's just amazing.
I love that. And Julia, do you think you would have realized the power of community when you were first starting out, or has it only
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Just the funny thing is, my business has morphed in completely different directions than I thought. I didn't realize it. I mean, there's just so many things I didn't realize were going to be important. Community wasn't even on my radar. I thought maybe I could hold a few little classes, or I was going to do like a lunch thing and I had 10 people around. I mean, I didn't think I could do community in this way. So no, I had no idea that community was going to be really important. And I was a little bit, I sort of didn't know. But when I started my Facebook page, which was back, I can't remember, let's say 4 years ago, Facebook was different and you had more community actually on the page.
Yes.
So I started this page and people started chatting on the page, and I thought, oh, wow, this is good, And that was about as far as I was getting with community, but I could see there was something really special there. But I also knew that with small businesses, people weren't going to reveal lots publicly, because that's the trouble about a Facebook page.
Exactly.
You don't want to go saying, oh God, my business isn't going so well, or I've got this problem, or I don't know whether to trust somebody, or a customer's done a dirty on me, or whatever. You don't want to put that publicly. And so that's why I started a Facebook group. And the Facebook group, and I have a secret group. You won't find, there's some groups that you can find, but my ones who are people who are in my program, you won't find them. They're totally secret. You can't know who's in there. You can't find out anything. And they are a very, very, very safe place. Well, that's what I'm sure. God knows what Facebook can do with information, but for us, it's a very, very safe place. And the power of community, I had no idea until I started it. And in fact, it wasn't until I started another one because I actually thought that might be just a one-off.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh wow, this works. And it's, what, it helps me as well. I mean, I love it. I really feel fantastic because I'm part of these communities, and they give me the energy as well.
Yeah, so you can kind of feed off each other, and as you say, it really is together. I always say together. What's the saying? I always get it wrong, but it's something like together you are so much. The sum of the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. Isn't that right? That's it. And I really believe that.
I believe it, and I think as well. There's the thing about kids. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, I sort of think it takes a village to raise a business. I think there's a little bit of similarities there, of that thing of lots of allowing people in, lots of people can help us. We can't do things all on our own.
Absolutely. So Julia, from a personal point of view for your business, are you like part of a mastermind now, or do you have a network of people that you can really rely on for your business in terms of peer group?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think I've always been keen on having people who help me in some way, often in a non-formal way. Things just click, and I have somebody for a while, if that makes sense. I mean, I think for me, as I evolve, I have different needs. There's a group that I have been in for a while, which is actually, the group's coming to an end, which is a shame really, but a group of women we call the Table of Fabulousness. And we all used to get together once a month for a lunch, and we would talk about our businesses, and we would just help each other. And we'd also, we were a bit like, a cheerleader squad for, so if anybody was doing anything, we'd all help them, make sure it happened. And it was really nice to have an in-person, thing to actually talk about. So I do less of that now, but I do have a number, probably 5 or 6 people who I catch up with regularly, maybe not often, but regularly, and for different things. And we and most of us have, it's a mutual, I chat about my business, they chat about their business, give each other ideas, and we just actually use it, because often I think if you just talk to somebody about what you're doing, all of a sudden the penny drops and you go, oh, I don't need any help. I've got it.
That's right, absolutely.
And I have different people who help with different things. So, for instance, when I was writing my book, a friend of mine's a writer, and she mentored me. I mean, she didn't write the book for me, didn't do any of that thing, but she, she was just like she was a mentor.
Yeah.
And now she's still a really good friend of mine, but I don't really talk to her in those ways now, because I'm not going to do another book. I've moved on from that. That's all good. In fact, she's now writing lots of books. But, different people come in at different times. There's some people who have got amazing businesses and who've grown digital businesses, online businesses. And I spend some time with them, because I've got a completely different business to them, but it is an online business predominantly. And I'm learning a lot from them. So I think it's important to surround yourself with good people, people who you sort of feel you can learn from a little bit better than you at something. I don't worry about whether that's in a very particularly formal way, which is probably a little bit ironic, because I do actually formally coach people. I mean, people do come to me for coaching, and we have a thing, and they pay me, and I still do some of that because I love doing it. So I don't do loads of it because I haven't got time, but I love doing that. But I don't have quite that same thing, but instead I have individuals who help me on certain things.
Okay, that's fantastic. Interesting. And Julia, we chatted a little bit offline as well, is that, that we all know how difficult being an entrepreneur or running your own business is, and we have our ups and downs, that's for sure, and it's great when it's up. But does anything stand out in your mind from having started Business Bakery and your experience to date, like the biggest challenges that you've come across as a business owner?
Yeah, okay, I've got 2, which I think I've got 2 and they happen at different times, but I would really like to talk about both of them, because I think they're both really important. The first one was, when I started, I had this huge fear of being judged. I thought everyone was going to look at anything that I published online and criticize it, as in I thought my peers or friends, or I don't know who I thought was going to do that actually. And I really thought people would say, oh, really? Oh, and especially because I guess I'd worked in a very professional environment, quite a sophisticated environment, and a little bit, I thought people might think I was dumbing down what I was doing. And it's not, it's just doing it differently. But for some reason I had it in my head that people might look at things I did and go, ugh. And then I realized, and I was very worried about this, so I wouldn't put stuff out there, because I'd think, oh God, what if people don't like it? So it was a really big thing for me to actually put myself and my stuff out there. And then when I did, I realized that actually nobody cared. Nobody was looking at what I was doing. 0 people actually were looking. In fact, my problem was getting people to look at what I was doing, not to have them criticizing me. So that was a really big thing for me. I had to just get over that fear of being judged. And the more I did, the less I cared, to the point where now I don't give 2 hoots. I will publish things which I think, and when I say publish, I mean, that sounds very grand. I mean, I might write a blog post, send a newsletter, write an article, put something on Instagram. Whatever those things are, I will do what I think is right. And I don't really care, because if you don't like it, you're not a Business Bakery person. Cheerio, you're not a part of our thing. So that was a big one to get over. And then I got over that one. That was fine.
So do you mind if I interrupt you there? Because I'd love to kind of dive in a bit deeper there, Julia, because I think that's a really, really common experience for a lot of our listeners is that they are so afraid of putting themselves out there. It's like, what if I'm not good enough? What are people going to think about me? What if I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing next? They'll have all these things, and I'd love to know, what were the steps that you took around that in terms of getting to the point now that you don't actually really care? And I get that. It's like, as soon as you're in action, it really does, it's a realization that no one's really watching what you're doing and it doesn't really matter. But I'd love to know kind of the steps that you took personally to get to that point.
Look, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the first one was, because I was a bit like not putting anything out there. And the first one I thought was, look, do I want to have this business or not? Because if I don't put anything out there, there is no business. There's never going to be anything. If I can't be proud of my work, and if I don't believe in it, then it's no good. But if I believe in it, I'm proud of it, I've got to put it out there. Otherwise, there is no business. You know what? Maybe I should go back and get a job again, because nothing's going to happen if I just talk to myself. And that was really important, because I didn't want to go back and have a job. I wanted to do this. So it made me do it the first time, and it made me do it the second time. And then I did a few things, one of which was I sort of made myself a little commitment. And in fact, actually, I did this first of all with blogging, because I just thought, I've got good content, I've got to write it in a way that's going to help me do the program and create a community. So I've got to have that. But blogging didn't come as easy to me as I thought it would. I thought, oh my goodness, like I'm an author. But what I did is, this was a few years ago, I set myself my own challenge, and I would write a blog post and publish it twice a week for a year. And I would just do it.
Wow. Okay.
And 104 blog posts later, and I had done it, and they weren't all great. Some of them were horrendous. Most of them are still on the website, so you can go and have a look at them. Some of them aren't. There's a few that are missing because they were really bad. But you know what? By the time I'd done 104 of them, I was so much better at doing it. Nobody ever said that was a bad blog post. Some of them were ignored completely, and I realized they weren't great. But then that stopped me worrying about it. I then also, I do a lot of public speaking, and I always did do a lot of public speaking, but it was different when I was representing. When I was asked to speak on behalf of Deloitte, that was a little bit different for me, putting my hand up saying, hey, I want to speak, I've got something good to talk about. And again, I sort of thought it came back to how much do I want to run my business more than my fear of doing this thing. So if my want is bigger than my fear, I will do it. And so I would sit there and say, which is bigger? And there was a few things where my fear was bigger than my wants, and I haven't done them. I mean, there's a few things I don't do, but on the whole, I wanted it more than I was scared of it, and I just went and did it. And actually, there's
so interesting. It's got such a lesson.
There's a guy who did this thing, and I can't really remember. It was like 100 Days of Fear or something, and he went and did something that scared him every single day.
Oh, Jean. Yes, I've just heard of that guy. Yeah.
So basically, and they're not jumping out of an airplane type fear. It's actually saying it's little things like, can I get a discount, or phoning up someone you don't know, those sort of things. And before he did that, I didn't know he'd done that. But what I was doing really was the equivalent. I was sort of doing one thing a day that I didn't want to do, that scared me a little bit, putting myself out there, being rejected sometimes, that was fine. But the more I did it, it was like water off a duck's back. It didn't really matter anymore. It really didn't matter. But I think what you have to do is you have to do it a lot for it not to matter. And whatever that thing is, whether it's, I don't cold call people, but if it was cold calling somebody about something, you just have to keep doing it. You do it 100 times, and the 101st time is going to be okay. You're not going to worry. And I think that with anything, and we all know what our thing is, but the more you do it, you just get over it. You just have to want it. You have to really, really want it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's such great advice, Julia. I love it. And I think you touched on a really good point, is that it's also almost a muscle that you've got. I talk about the courage muscle, and it's this muscle that you've got to keep working until it's stronger than the muscle of fear, if you like, And I think that's a really, really good point, and such a great lesson that you learned, and it's evident in your success now. And so, what's the other challenge? I'd love to hear, because I know what it is, because we touched on it offline, and I can say I empathize with this one because we're a busy mum of three too.
The other challenge, and it's a challenge that hasn't gone away, but I've worked within it, is the time challenge. Because when you're running a little business, and you're running it yourself, there is an awful lot to do, and there doesn't feel like there's enough time to do it all. And plus, I have 4 children, and I mean, I'm pretty good at having work time and children time and everything else. But you know what? There really aren't enough hours to do all the things that I actually want to do. And so this caused me some anxiety. And in fact, if you read some of my blog posts, you'll see, because I started getting really into time management, I was always coming up with techniques. I still do. It's still a big thing of mine, because I think it's a thing that we all struggle with. Because actually, all of a sudden, you know, we're running a business. We're trying to do the product or the service. And that's the thing that we're really trying to do. Plus, we're trying to market our business. Plus, there's admin to do. Plus, we've got to think about it and strategy and that sort of stuff. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're trying to do all that in one human. And even, I mean, and there's lots of answers. There's not one answer. There's lots of answers. Yes, you can outsource to somebody. Yes, you can do less. Yes, you can. And there's all sorts of things you can do. You can get up earlier. I do them all. You can do those things, but it's still a challenge. And so for me, I was feeling a few years ago a little bit defeated by it, thinking, am I just not going to be able to do this? Is there actually too much? And can I just not do it? And then I had this, just had this epiphany that there was never going to be enough time to do all the things I wanted. There just wasn't going to be enough time. And that actually made me feel so much better when I realized there's no point in having this massive to-do list. I was never, ever, ever going to get it all done. And so then I sat there thinking, well, what do I want to do? Okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that and that and that and that. And it just gave me a sense of peace, actually, around selecting and doing the right things and not worrying. And look, you know what? Things fall. There are things that I don't do. There are things that I say no to. In an ideal world, I would do them. I can't do them. Sorry. Can't do them.
So you can't just give yourself permission.
It's so good, because now I do the important stuff. And I know I do the important stuff. And there are some things I'd love to be playing around with and doing, which I don't do, because, look, for instance, I have to be quite focused about social media. So I pick, okay, I'm going to post. I made a decision. I have a great Facebook page, and it has lots of followers on it, but I made a decision that I wasn't going to invest huge time in it, because I just decided that actually, that there are other ways. I have a community, I have these groups. I have a very thriving weekly newsletter, which shares my content, and people write back to me on that. So I've got my own little world happening somewhere else. So I decided I wasn't going to spend 4 or 5 hours a day on Facebook. I put one thing a day on there. Now, I'd love to be putting more stuff on, but I decided that wasn't the right thing for my business. And so I just, I'm not going to get everything done if I do that.
You just got to prioritize, right?
And prioritizing and just saying no to things. But I sort of had to realize I couldn't do everything, because I actually did for a long time think, hey, I'm Superwoman. I actually can do all these small business things. I can do them all. They will all get done. They might not get done this week, but they will all get done. And so actually saying no, they're not going to get done, and I'm not going to do them, was a really changed my business, actually.
Yeah, really liberating, it sounds like, right? Yeah.
I mean, I've extended that a little bit into my house. There are things that I don't do. The things I think, oh, well,
Yeah.
If we're going to be a little bit untidy for a few days a week, we're going to be a little bit untidy for a few days a week. You know what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what, I'm just intrigued, Julia, what point did you get to? How did you make that decision? Like, when did you get to that point that you actually realized that? You said it was a couple of years ago, but was there a trigger that you...
Look, there wasn't one particular trigger, I don't think, but I do read. I love reading, and one of the things I do is I like to read and synthesize and curate other people's stuff and pass it back. So I do a lot of reading, and I read a lot. I read a lot about time management, and I read a lot about it quite quickly. But there are some books, like there's a book, what's it called? How many hours are there in a week? 168 hours, is it? I think so. So it's called 168 hours, how are you spending yours? And so it was quite interesting looking at a week instead of, hours in a day, and thinking, well, where's all the time going? And reading some of these things just made me start to think, there is only so much time. There isn't this big bubble of time going to happen at some other point in time. I also think with my kids, I used to think when they were little, that they would grow up and then now would have more time.
That's so not true.
Well, that my oldest is 13. I haven't got more time,
That's right.
So I sort of used to think that there was going to be this little bubble of time somewhere. And then I started to realize that actually this little bubble wasn't going to happen. I was busier than ever. My kids, my oldest is a teenager, and as a teenager, I have more. He takes up more time because I might have to take him to sport at 6:30 in the morning, and I might still be picking him up at 9:30 at night. And all of a sudden, all that time which used to be mine is being eaten by him. So it hasn't got easier. You'll appreciate that. And so I think a combination of reading about it, thinking about it, and actually really, if I've got a real challenge or a real obstacle, I'm going to meet it head on. And I was looking at time and I was meeting it head on going, okay, what are we going to do about this? Because I don't want to be frustrated and I don't want to whinge about it. I mean, that's the other thing. I don't want to keep going, oh, I'm so busy. I haven't got time. You know what? This is my life. I want to enjoy it. And I just don't want to be a whinger about it. And so then I just had this, I remember having the epiphany and thinking, wow, there really isn't going to be time. Nothing's going to change. There isn't going to be. And one of the things that actually had a lot of part of the program that I was writing, I needed to write some more stuff for this big program that I run. And when I realized there was never going to be time to write it, that's when I actually started getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would write from 4 till 7 every single morning. From 7 o'clock, I would take over, do kiddie duties and stuff. And I just did it. And, every morning my alarm went off at 3:55 and I'd creep downstairs, put the kettle on, a cup of tea, dressing gown on, and write. And it helped me do things just to, I sort of had it. I think the knowledge that there wasn't going to be enough time helped me find how can I do it then. Yes. And I think that's the thing with obstacles is often they're very real. Yeah, they are very real. I mean, my fear thing was real. What was my judgment thing? Everyone's going to, that was very real. But it was real in my head, but then it went away. The time thing was real. It wasn't just real in my head. It was a real thing. There wasn't actually as much time to do everything, but just meeting it head on helped me work out what I was going to do about it. And I think with obstacles is you either decide to let them defeat you or you're going to defeat them.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice, Julia. Yeah, I love that. As you said, it is very real, but I think that realization, and I think you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, is that you are ambitious. So there's things that you want to do, but it's just like really just letting it go. And then realizing that you aren't going to accomplish everything, but really being really strategic on the stuff that's going to count, right? And so that you are making a big impact on the little things that you can do, I think is really, really important.
I think your point is about this thing about ambition. You've got to really want to do this thing that you're doing. And I think if you don't really want to do it, look, go do something else. Because without that bottom layer of drive, you can't do this. I mean, actually, there was a lady who's doing my program, and she wrote to me and she said, oh, look, I think I'm going to stop doing the program. I said, look, that's fine. And she says, look, it's just, I've realized that I would rather watch TV than work on my business. And actually, I don't think I want to have a business because I don't really want to do this stuff. I don't want to do it. And I thought, good for her, because she actually realized, she actually had a lovely little baking business, but she really didn't like the businessy things. And she said, what, I'm just going to bake for friends. I don't worry about the money. I'm going to bake for friends, be a mom, and do that. Good for her, because she didn't have that that sort of level of drive and ambition around it. And I think it's really important to know whether you've got that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got it. That is, as you say, it's the kind of cornerstone to everything else, I think, Julia. It's so true. So I'd love to know now, having moved from a big, high-flying corporate job, being a mum to 4 and having this amazing business, what does really an entrepreneur, being a business owner, really mean to you now? And what's it made possible for you, I guess?
Okay, so the big thing for me was I really had this need and desire to help people. I mean, I really did. I wanted to help people. I found the people that wanted to help, and I found the way to do it. I want to do a lot more with it. I feel like I've just scraped the surface, and I really want to do a lot with this. I have, big ambitions for what the business bakery can be, not necessarily in terms of sort of, size for the sake of size, but I do think a great, gentle, useful place for the large number of sort of micro businesses and entrepreneurs setting off. I mean, I know I've talked about very small businesses, but we all start small.
That's right.
Nobody starts big. So It's fine to start small and then decide to be big. So I've got this huge drive around that. I like being in charge. I like deciding what we're going to do, and I like making it happen. I like that sort of stuff. I like the thrill of actually not knowing if it's going to work. I like experimenting. I think I find it hard to be an employee again. Because I want to do it my way. And I'm really happy to take advice and listen and everything, but I don't really want to be sort of forced between rules, which I don't necessarily think are very important. But fundamentally, I like to wake up every day and do something which I think is useful, really purposeful. I have a purpose, and that's what I want to do, and it's really, really important to me. I couldn't go and do something just for the money, because I just can't. And I don't think entrepreneurship is for everybody. I really don't. It's harder than I thought it was going to be. And this is sort of in a way, it's sort of what I do. But it's harder. It is harder, and it's fantastic. I think you have the highs, and there's more highs and there's more lows.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're somebody who can cope with that, then it's absolutely fantastic. And I think if you surround yourself with other entrepreneur type people who understand that, it's just brilliant. I really am so happy that I'm doing it. I mean, the thing for me is that scares me is that what if I hadn't done it? Well,
that's a big question, right? Yeah.
What if I hadn't that morning got up, got in a car, driven and said, I'm leaving my job? What if I hadn't done that? What if I thought, oh no, I better stay doing what I'm doing? And that, look, I'd have probably a little bit more money, but I wouldn't be anything like as fulfilled.
So fulfilled. I know, fulfilled is the word, and I think that really, you've got to, as you say, you've got to be a certain type of person, I think, to really be an entrepreneur. And as you say, can appreciate the highs and lows. And, it is a lot of work. It's not easy, but it is so fulfilling. At the end of the day, when you are creating a business that is making an impact on just one other person, it really is so fulfilling. So, Julia, thank you for that. I'd love to now dive into the lightning round of our interview, which I just ask a couple of questions just to wrap up the show. So the first one is, do you have a business or life quote that you live by, and why?
Oh, well, it's quite funny, because if you look at my Facebook page, you'll see there's a million quotes on there.
I love them. Yeah.
This is the lightning round, but I just have to say this, is that every quote I put on there, because on that day it meant something to me. So I'm very into quotes, but probably my favorite one is, be yourself because everyone else is taken. And that's probably the thing I struggle a little bit with sometimes. I've always wanted to be myself, but I've been a little bit worried. I've thought maybe I should just try to blend in a little bit more with everybody else. And then I've had to go, no, be yourself, be you, because that's who you are. So that's my favorite quote.
I love it. And that's so true. I really think that if you can, stand out from the crowd, really identify with what makes you unique, then really it does make it so much easier to run your business the way that you want to, market yourself, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really important. So I love that. And the next one is women that that inspire you. So I know there's so many women out there doing amazing things, but is there one particular woman that you can really identify with who really inspires you?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to have two, because I have to break all your rules.
Yeah.
Okay, one of them is Emma Isaacs, who runs Business Chicks. I don't know if you know Emma. I mean, she's amazing. So she's got 4 children.
She's just had a new baby, right?
Baby.
Oh, wow.
She has created just an amazing community. She provides, she brings speakers over and people go to see the speakers, but there's more to that. There's a wider community. And she is she's very focused but very warm. And I think it's quite hard to be both those things. I think sometimes you get people who are very focused and very driven and very good at business, but they haven't got that lovely warm stuff. And she's very warm with it and has created an amazing business. And I've learned so much from watching her, because she understands, she's very clear about what makes her tick. And so somebody the other day was asking her, was she going to take much time off when she had a new baby? And she said, you know what, I get my energy from work, so I really have to keep working. I thought, good for you. You've articulated it. You know it. You carry on working. You know, those sort of things. She's very good at delegating, very good at outsourcing things. She knows what she's good at. And I think they're fantastic skills. Because she doesn't get wrapped up in the sort of the, oh, what will people think if I do this? What will, you know, she just does it. She just does it. And she's built a very, very successful business from it. So that's my first one. My second one is somebody who you probably haven't or might not have come across, but it's a lady called Rhiannon Allen who runs a business it's called A Healthy Mummy, and it's also called Lose Baby Weight. But she has found a fantastic way to help young mums lose their baby weight, but she's got a fantastic business behind it. She's a very driven, very ambitious, never stops. She's like the Duracell bunny, never stops. And but she's fantastic. And again, I've learned a lot from her in terms of drive, actually, of just keeping going. And she's, you know, and what I love doing is I love finding people like this and learning from them. And it's not necessarily a sort of an education type learning, but I watch how they work and I think, oh wow, gosh, look at the way she does that. Look at the fact that she just goes that little bit extra all the time, or look at the fact that she doesn't worry about what people are going to think about her. She just does it. And I love looking at those aspects of people and thinking, I really admire that. I know I'm not very good at it, but maybe I can try and be a little bit better because I've seen them do it and I've seen how successful it makes them.
Oh, that's fantastic advice, Julia. I love that. Really, it's so true that you always, I think that you touched on a really good point, is that really be open to learning all the time, you know, because you can learn from so many people doing all these amazing things. So I think that's really good advice.
Totally. I mean, just on that, you know, I go and do it. So I do a little bit of work with these medium-sized businesses, with entrepreneurs whose businesses turn over, let's say, $10 million. And I go in there to help. I'm paid to help, and I always learn. I learn so much when I'm there. I come back thinking, wow, that was fantastic. I've learned so much, and I got paid for it.
That's awesome. And now I'd love to wrap up with you. You know, you've got experience working with women. Your community is mainly women, and I'd love to know, Julia, specifically, what do you think are the biggest barriers to female entrepreneurship in today's society? You know, I just think that, you know, us women have got so much to share. We've got so much potential, and yet it's almost like there's some number that I can't actually remember the statistics, but it's like we're just not earning enough in our businesses because, you know, there's stuff that's holding us back. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, look, such an interesting question, and I think entrepreneurship is quite tricky for everybody, but I think particularly for females, or certainly the people that I come across, let's say business bakery type people, because they're the ones I know best. And I think the thing that holds us back most is probably not being ballsy enough, actually. You know, really just sort of sometimes we have to do things that are really uncomfortable. It comes back to that judgment thing a little bit. We have to do things that are uncomfortable, and you have to do them if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because it's not going to be comfortable all the way. But I think that there's some of those things which women find a little bit hard. You know, maybe it's asking for help. Maybe it's being a little bit pushy. Look, I know some fantastic women who are very pushy and have been very, very successful, right? So, you know, but I also know lots of women who aren't pushy. I'm not a pushy person. I don't like being pushy. I have to make myself do things which other people would do for breakfast, you know, like but I think you have to be a little bit pushy, and I think some of us find that tricky. I think also I think sometimes we're grateful for what our business gives us, rather than turning around and saying, hey, come on, we can do better than this. We say, oh, how fantastic. I just earn a little bit from or we put ourselves, we're sort of a little bit too humble, a little bit too, oh, look, I did this with my business, you know, it's only small, it's only little, but I'm really pleased I did it. And we can be a little bit more, I don't mean to anybody else. I don't want people, you know, not to brag to anybody, but we can be a little bit to ourselves. What if I could just push myself just a little bit more? As I said, you know, I've said it a million times. I don't want people thinking, oh, you've got to go and do this, and it's not all about being aggressive, but it is about that thing of, you know what, I can do it, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I do a little bit with my people who do the 100-day goal. We all set our own goals. We don't have to be big goals, you know. It can be, I want to do this in 100 days, and then you just do little things towards it. But what stops us? Well, sometimes, you know, oh, we didn't want to do that goal in the first place. somebody thought that was a good goal for us. Or other times we think, oh, I can't really do it. It's only me. It's only little me. I can't do that. I can't do this big thing. But we can do it. And so it's a little bit having our own courage. And lots of women do this fantastically. I mean, lots of women are just brilliant entrepreneurs. Yeah. But I think the people who find it hard are those of us who are probably a little bit less pushy, a little bit less courageous, a little bit less self-belief.
Yeah. And I always say that, and I think that entrepreneurship really is not only a journey, it's a journey of business development, but really it's the biggest journey of self and personal development that you'll have too. And I think it really is a matter of really getting to know yourself. You touched on it with Emma Isaacs, really knowing what your strengths are, identifying with those, and really focusing on those, and then not worrying about the weaknesses and just taking action anyway, I think, Julia. So,
yes.
It's been absolutely incredible speaking with you. I know we're almost on the hour, which I could chat to you for hours, but it's been absolutely incredible. Your insights, your business, your branding. As I said, it's just really, really inspiring to watch you, to watch your journey, and to learn from you, Julia. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's been a complete pleasure. I've loved every minute of it, and I could carry on for another few hours. So it's been fantastic. It's really fun to have a conversation like this because, like in everything, I learn from conversations like this. So it's brilliant. And thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Julia. And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.